Hello there, it's your boy Offie D here to bring you the best parts of the Great War mod for Napoleon Total War in this abridged campaign commentary. I'm going to be playing as Belgium, only really for the reason that when I clicked on them I thought that actually they're right at the front, in between the big warring superpowers. So yes, we should have a nice interesting time right from the very beginning if we jump into this little crossover between the French and German spheres of influence. I started moving south towards Strasbourg, where I could go across another river and just start annoying the enemy by damaging their industry. We're going to keep going south, being a bit dangerous here because we're leaving the route from the east towards Brussels very open, but we're just going to annoy the enemy, damage their industry and generally scout around, like right here using this damaged conscript unit or militia unit, to just go and see what the enemy have at Strasbourg. They do have an army that's bigger than ours, so seeing that, we're not going to be too aggressive, going to just stand on this bridge here and stop them getting into our territory, as long as nothing happens up to the north to threaten us. What does happen is that my militia unit gets attacked by one unit of artillery, so I ended up moving to be really close. I thought this is how we'll finish them off. The enemy were trying to limber up the guns, so they were just stuck there for a while, and we were able to get to point blank range and start firing. Even then though, our guys still just aren't that good. Not only did their firing rate seem to drop as they were confused by what to fire at, when they were firing it just wasn't really doing that much damage. Eventually a few guys managed to score a few of these point blank shots and start taking the enemy down. The local German army, they decided to all come out to try and get revenge. So after sending one unit, they sent all of their units, and I was like, okay man, and finally fell back, and the enemy did not pursue, so that was the end of that. I thought maybe I could move out with my army and take the enemy down, but we still have a slight disadvantage, so I didn't bother, and that turned out to be a good decision because the enemy actually came to attack me, and my army is standing on a bridge, so that's going to help us out. And looking at their army, it's not really that much more powerful than ours, maybe it isn't at all, since we've got those reinforcements I mentioned. They started moving their first artillery unit, and we happened to kill their general who was among them, or their captain I guess, so that's going to help us out a fair bit. The enemy's morale's already low when they finally reach the ford, but we've got our whole army set up to receive them. There is no chance that they will get across this ford, and perhaps some of the men begin to realise that because as we unleash fire on them, their units start just routing even at relatively okay strength. Even with that rout, it's not really going to help them because the AI can't strategically retreat from battles. All the routed troops will stop routing and just come back. They'll keep trying to cross the river. So as the player, we don't have to do anything now, we just wait for ourselves to win and the enemy continually pour more troops into this crossing. We lost something like 10 men, the enemy lost something like 1,000. It was an absolutely one-sided slaughter thanks to the river crossing and the AI realising or not realising that it couldn't make the river crossing and just trying to do it anyway. The German army does have quite a lot more stuff in the area, and that stuff coalesces to come and attack our river crossing once again. A big army appears with tons of artillery and an actual general leading it, and loads of infantry, and it's going to incorporate the infantry left over from that last fight. Had the chance to intercept there, but we definitely don't want to intercept. We want them to fight us where we're standing so that we'll get the river crossing again. All the AI needs to do is not cross the river at this point in order to win. They could just sit there and kill us. Artillery has infinite ammo. Handily for us, the AI doesn't know about that of course, so we can start preparing to defend the river crossing knowing the enemy will try. I quickly put everyone back into their entrenchments ready to receive the enemy once they're close, and again that means we're being hit by the artillery. Some of our men aren't doing a very good job of using the entrenchments, as you can see, so we're going to micro them to try and actually be in cover. As for the enemy army, they're here ready to cross, but they are dithering about a bit. They wanted to reform before coming at us. I mean, they shouldn't come at us at all, so reforming is a good idea in that respect because it's delaying their very dangerous attack. At the same time, my infantry going up the other side of the map have reached the enemy's artillery, so now we can finally make ourselves a bit safer. That is, if my men can actually defeat these artillery crews. and as we saw before, our low accuracy will be a problem. We start firing volley after volley towards them, and gradually we'll take the enemy out. They are firing back at us, but artillery don't seem to be very good at close range. They're shooting into the ground and over our heads and just generally leaving us alone, so we can get away with this and start working our way through all of those gun positions. Meanwhile, here come the enemy infantry, a huge human wave attack across the bridge charging right at us. They can't really shoot at us until they've formed up on our side of the bridge, but when they're there, they're going to get shot from all directions, and that will cause pretty much every unit who attempts to do this to just rout, run back across the bridge, getting shot again the whole way. So yes, very low threat from the enemy here. They're not really going to be shooting at us, we're going to be shooting at them a lot, and their casualties are going to be massive. Some of the guys are stopping to fire, so they're trying to engage us from the bridge, which is even worse than just charging right across, because they're really not going to be firing at us, but we're firing at them. At this stage, the AI's only hope is that we run out of ammunition. I guess that could happen, but it's not going to happen before we've killed pretty much all of the enemy forces. So yes, this won't work out for the enemy. We lost something like 20% of our men, mostly to the enemy's artillery bombardment, but the enemy lost absolutely loads of stuff, some 2,500 troops. Their main force is totally wrecked. I still didn't go after the defeated army to bring it down, and this apparently just tempts the enemy to go at it again. They're going to try and cross one more time. A few men finally rout and shatter at the end, so they'll live, but a very large amount of enemy soldiers were killed with minimal effort from our side. We lost about 40 men, killed over 600 enemies, and once again the German Empire in this area has been humiliated by our plucky Belgian force. And indeed we are going to be able to take Strasbourg right now after our efforts last time. It's just defended by a load of citizen militia type units who aren't very good. Even then, gonna save before auto-resolving because I have zero faith in Napoleon Total War. Luckily, it's a reasonable result and we take the city, which is great for many reasons. One is something I haven't really talked about, which is the money situation. We weren't making any money because our army is at pretty much its max size, so now that we have some territory, we'll be able to recruit some more units and build buildings, etc. Plus, now that our army is in a city, it will start replenishing, so our initial force, which has been fighting since the beginning of the war, will finally be reinforced. You might also note that this capture cuts France and Germany off from each other, so Belgium very much is the front line of this war. We are just carrying this entire thing at the moment. The Germans have been reinforcing their position up here, just to the east of Belgium, so it's looking like there could be another attack towards Brussels, but I have also reinforced my bridge defense in the area, so I'm not all that worried about it. To work out what we should do, I sent some conscripts out to go take a look, or my civil guard, and they discovered there is actually a major army just over to the east at Stuttgart. Looks like it's a more powerful army than what we have. And right here, that German army we'd scouted out before reappears walking down the road, and we can ambush them. They've got a big army, they've got flamethrowers, and they've got machine gun bunkers. This is a powerful force, much more powerful than ours. However, I figured that because we're ambushing them, surely their machine gun bunkers won't be of any use, they won't be able to deploy them. But unfortunately for me, that's not how this game works. So I went ahead and did the ambush, and as soon as I pressed start battle, a couple of things surprised me. One was that the enemy deployed in this blob at the end of their deployment zone, which meant a lot of my firing line is out of position again. And as we take a look at their force, there they are. They've deployed their bunkers, even in their marching column somehow. We could be in trouble here. So they're all facing forwards, meaning my men are behind them and off to the flank. That's a good start. At least I thought that would be a good start. It's going to be a moot point actually, as you'll see in a second, because the game just crashed right away. I had a hunch as to why it was crashing in the Total War engine. Random crashes are often caused by particle effects going off near the camera, like explosions. So to counter that, I'm just going to keep the camera a bit further away from the enemy army as we get through this first bit of the battle where the CPU is chugging to process all these AI moves. Anyway, this time I've deployed much better. I've got most of my troops near the enemy, so we're shooting them down right away. Their cav just gets annihilated because it gets too close. The first hint that we're in trouble is right here, when one of our units suddenly routs after taking some losses from something. It didn't look like we're under much pressure in this area, so I was like, how come they routed? But I just passed that off as well. Maybe they just suck, maybe it's low morale. But then another unit suddenly routs, and I was like, why are we losing men here? So confused, I started moving away. Now I came over here to take another look at the bunkers, and you can see clear evidence that yes, these bunkers have a 360-degree arc of fire. It looks like they would shoot out the front, but they absolutely can shoot to their flanks and behind them. There's just no animation for it. So our men were actually getting annihilated, and I just didn't even really notice during the fight. The bunkers don't have any projectile trails, nor do they have muzzle flashes, so it's hard to tell what they're shooting at. It's hard to work out how threatening they really are. So, to discover this, we're just going to walk away and look at the ground to see where the shots that are hitting the ground are kicking at mud, and we can kind of work out how these bunkers work. One thing we discover is that they actually have a really long range. I think they have 2 to 3 times the range of a rifle for some reason. So our men, even relatively far away, were getting annihilated, and again, because there's no projectile trails, you kind of don't notice it. We just lost half a unit without any indication or warning. It's pretty deadly, this stuff. We need to really pay attention to these bunkers. Once everyone's far enough away, we stop losing men. But even at this distance we see here, the enemy are still shooting at us and bullets are landing right in front of my men. We're not even safe at this huge looking range. We're even behind a couple of hills and behind trees and stuff. These bunkers have absolutely no mercy. And of course we're going to struggle to take them down because they're just sitting there. We can't walk at them. All we can do is try to hit them with our artillery, but the artillery is very inaccurate as usual, and the bunkers aren't that big, so we just sit here missing over and over again. If those bunkers wanted, they could shoot forwards and absolutely wipe out our guns, and then we'd have no chance of destroying the bunkers. Here we can see it does work sometimes. We eventually took out one of the bunkers, and the crew decided to start walking right at us, perhaps to get revenge. Now I figured that wouldn't be a big deal, but actually there's another trick to these bunkers. The crew have some kind of invincibility status. We kill one of the guys, but the other two keep just walking at us. Bullets are sailing all over the place, but seem to just be missing all the time. You probably can't hear it, but there are constant damage and screaming sound effects, as if these guys are being hit by something. But they are unstoppable. We've got a Terminator situation. They just walked their way in weird slow motion right up to my lines, and I had to order all the men to cease fire because we're about to get crossfire, friendly fire going on right there. The only hope left is that we can somehow stop them with a melee. They may be bulletproof, maybe they're not knife or bayonet proof, so I ordered the infantry to charge right at them. Handily they didn't go for my guns, they just kind of walked around for a bit once they got here, so I was able to catch up before they wreaked any havoc. Now the melee breaks out, these guys just have short daggers, figured we'd be able to team up on them. We kill one, so there we go, there's proof that it can be done, and eventually someone else manages to get the kill on the other guy. So they have some kind of strange resistance to ranged attacks. Maybe it's inheriting the bulletproofness of the bunker's exterior itself or something. It somehow affects the crew as well. But we lost something like half of our entire army doing that ambush, mostly with me barely even noticing because it was just happening off screen where the machine guns were subtly killing all my guys en masse. Now, here's a turn up for the books. The German Empire came to us asking for a peace treaty. Clearly we have humiliated them in all of our victories. Now, while accepting this would probably damage our side's cause, I'm going to accept it anyway because I was quite up for this. Given that I now know I need to probably modernize a bit more to be on par with the German Empire, I thought, well, if you're not going to invade me for a bit, that should help me out. That gives us some time to deploy some machine gun bunkers at some point. Also crossing a bridge is that Austro-Hungarian army that appeared out of nowhere and ran right for Strasbourg and now has us under siege, so that's a bit of a situation. At the start of the next turn, you might also note we're at war with Germany again for some reason. I'm not sure how they managed it, but possibly they came back into the war through their allies, so I never got the declaration or what have you. Now we can take a little peek at what this army has in it. and you can see that field guns seem to be filling up most of its unit cards, so I decided to sally, and that reveals the truth of the matter. It's just loads and loads of artillery. But anyway, I'm going to leave most of my army in its prepared position so we can use the trenches, and then all of the free units are going to just run up both edges of the map towards the flanks of the enemy army in the hope of disabling some of their artillery. Now our citizen units are in position, ready to start their attack. The enemy seem to be on to me. They're trying to move their artillery away, but of course it's too slow to do anything much or get very far. We start firing at them then at point blank range, but as we've seen again in the past, this isn't very effective. The artillery can just shake off this sort of close range gunfire, and with the low quality of the units we're making the attack with, it's particularly bad. Just nothing's happening over there. At least the enemy's attacking troops have been completely annihilated, as you might expect. They just ran at us, got shot to pieces, and then it was the usual rout and try again thing where it's even less effective and they end up just being completely destroyed. These few guys with knives held off all of our units, they all routed, and now they're fleeing, being pursued by the enemy. This is a national disgrace, to be sure. I guess these guys are from Strasbourg, which only recently became part of Belgium, so maybe it's less bad for our propaganda. Anyway, my strategy now was just to send the entire army forwards. We had to just get the regulars to go and shoot the artillery from the front to take them out. Now, the enemy lost 4 times more men than we did, plus a lot of our losses were just the citizens who just respawn after the fight, and we're going to get replenishment because we're sitting in our town. So overall, that was a perfect engagement and the situation is completely resolved. Another Austro-Hungarian army has appeared. Therefore, I put together pretty much everything we have into this one big field army, and we'll go after the Austro-Hungarian field army. At the front, as I said, the enemy are just getting annihilated. They're running up towards our line, getting shot the whole time. Some of them are managing some return fire, so we do take some casualties, but nothing significant. A while later, our shooting manages to get the enemy general who was out there somewhere. Might even have been the artillery that got him with a nice lucky shot. The enemy lost more than 10 times what we lost in that battle. I'm disbanding several units to make space in our economy to have machine guns be deployed very soon. And then, as we saw there, a random Austro-Hungarian army appears from the woods and lays siege to Strasbourg. Looks pretty easy because we have tons of men, but annoyingly most of our troops are in the reinforcement army because I'm attacking in a stupid fashion. While we were waiting around, the enemy did this. They sent a load of cav to charge our front line. Basically, the Napoleon Total War AI just doesn't work in this mod. The mod isn't really compatible with the game at all, but I guess there isn't another Total War game that's more compatible, so it's your best bet. And things like this happen. The enemy cav just run at us and get absolutely annihilated. Perhaps the AI thought there was a chance of something happening there. So the siege is lifted. Austria-Hungary's fates have not been very good here in Strasbourg. There's some bad news nearby though. Looks like Switzerland has been conquered by the Italians. So now we have another front. Now Strasbourg can be attacked from 3 sides. Defending this area is getting more and more annoying for us, yet we must, because we are the ones fighting the Great War. Right now it's all up to us for some reason. Trouble is brewing. A German army has marched into our territory, and there's another one nearby that could be following. And also I was aware that there was a 3rd German army somewhere that I'd seen moving about, and currently it's hidden, basically just behind where that 1st German army is. So I didn't want to go on the offensive. I had to wait for the enemy to get everything out in the open. And as I did, the Italians finally made that attack from the south with 1.5 stacks, one of which was hidden there in the forest to our south, and the bigger army lays siege to Strasbourg. As for the Germans, their forces start to appear. 2 armies march across our territory, apparently ignoring Strasbourg. They're determined to go for the buildings outside the town, which is fine by me, since that means the Italians are on their own. It's actually worse than I thought, because when I sally to attack them, somehow that German army to the northwest is in reinforcement range of the Italian one, so we have to fight them both at the same time. On the outside of the town, I had this machine gun crew that I thought may be able to gun the enemy down as they approach the outskirts of this town, but it's not that easy because, for whatever reason, the machine gun crew does not accept my attack orders. Whenever I give an attack order, it moves instead, and so this ends up with this happening. The enemy's cavalry run in and kill the machine gun crew, and it ends up being completely useless. some nearby militia are firing from a building, so that will drive those cav away for now. And they eventually just made their way through the town, which is just what I wanted, because they'll end up suddenly coming around the corner, and here we are in the centre. I've got 3 or 4 units around the church with trenches in the town centre. That's going to be our main defensive position. Outside the town, the battle with the Italian army is just getting started, and here we've got another machine gun crew that this time was more useful. Machine guns far outrange rifles for some reason, so we can have them behind our line firing over the top at these distant enemies. These guys are just sniping away at us. We're also going to have an infantry fight going on where, of course, we'll have the advantage of trenches. Our men are not always using the trenches effectively, as you can see, but it will mean we'll have an advantage. The enemy also have quite a lot of conscript troops who are easy to rout, so that will help us out as well. In the town, looks like things are going well. Our men are shooting the enemy. Finally, it's working out, and the enemy are going to take huge losses trying to engage with us while we have the trenches here. We're going to gradually get whittled down, but it's all good stuff. Back on the front lines with Italy, more micro required as our men are just walking off, just rotating randomly. We've got some serious glitches to deal with here. The machine guns should be doing good work though. The enemy are a bit closer. You can kind of see the shots landing, the little black particle effects. They're landing all over the place, and they must be sometimes killing enemies. They're not getting absolutely mowed down or anything, but over the course of a couple of minutes, while you're not really looking, you probably will kill a whole unit over time. The Italians have gone around the edge of our line with a few units, some good AI, although I'm sure it was an accident, and now we're in trouble. We've got a melee going on the left side of the line, but because the rest of the Italian army routed in the gun battle, we are going to be able to turn around and deal with that. Near the church, things are getting real messy. We're starting to take substantial losses because our men just aren't firing at the enemy and are spending most of their time rotating and trying to get into cover. The Italian general dies somewhere out there in the field, so that's good news. And as you can see, I've just turned back most of the line to deal with this flank incursion. They did take out one of my artillery guns, and also I'm shelling myself because the guns further back are firing into that melee. But things work out. There go the enemy troops. So the Italian army is pretty much dead now. They're all routing off the map. The main strength with the enemy is in that German force. In this case, the Germans have successfully gone over one of my entrenchments and are now in the square fighting with us in melee. The unit that's fighting there is going to get taken out, and we've barely got any troops left to defend further up the square near the church entrance. We're going to be moving our general line of defense back and just defend our side of the square now. We've still got plenty of choke points and good angles to use. So there goes our unit in melee. One of the German squads came back outside the square, and our men in the street could just cut them down. But again, there's some kind of delay. It's just not that easy. After giving a few attack orders, finally shots are fired at the last possible second as the enemy was charging at us. They are cut down at close range, and the entire enemy unit is wiped out, and very, very quickly that takes a lot of the pressure off in this area. The other unit routed facing our survivors. We need to hammer this battle home by finishing off the Italians, really. In this case, I was able to use some trenches set up by the Italians to fire at their men, so that was very nice. Those men don't really die, and I had to advance to point-blank range because for some reason they just weren't dying as I shot them. And even here, after I've just stood right in front of them and started firing, these engineers seem to die really slowly. I suspect they have more than one hit point. It wasn't that good for us, really. We lost more than half of our army taking the enemy down, a lot of it to the Italian attack, and a lot of that was due to the enemy's artillery gradually killing us throughout the fight, which was hard to tell from the way I was filming it there, but we were being pummeled the whole time. At least the enemy lost something like 5,000 or 6,000 troops, the siege is broken, and we can replenish for a turn, so things will be relatively okay. The German army is building up at the border quite a lot and sending quite a lot of men over that border into our territory. It seems that some kind of showdown is building here. Lots of armies are appearing. The Italians are making more effort to attack us. They've got an army now besieging Strasbourg once again, so we're back pretty much where we were just a few turns ago. As for the Germans, I don't think they really want to attack us. Many of their armies appear to be moving past us. It looks like they're going to attack France, which is absolutely perfect for us. That should take the pressure off. no matter the situation, the first thing we need to do right now is get rid of this Italian army currently besieging Strasbourg. And by the way, look at the enemy's artillery. They've deployed them behind a hill, so the spirit of the Dark Artillery Lord is with us today. That means we're going to be free to do absolutely nothing, pretty much. We'll just sit here, shelling the enemy to pieces as they advance, and not being very shelled to pieces in return. Our artillery is definitely killing some enemies. They're gradually getting killed all over the place, and because our artillery's pretty high level now, having got loads of kills, their accuracy stats seems to have increased. We're more reliably killing stuff with them. So we destroy the enemy infantry, suffice to say, then we just advance the whole line forwards to start shooting up the enemy artillery. And I noticed, if you look in the bottom left here, we're actually losing a load of men right now. And that's because the friendly fire AI is pretty bad, so when you have line infantry units standing next to each other, sometimes they shoot to the side and hit each other as well. It's pretty dire. Here's a look at the Germans' next turn. And things don't seem to be going very well. We see a French army defeated on our border, and there's now 2 German armies just over there, adding on to the 2 or 3 already in our territory. Not very nice. Basically, we're really outclassed here. The Germans have loads of troops, and some of them are moving, well, I thought into France, but we'll see. They're not moving into France at all. They're just bypassing our bridge and going the long way towards Belgium. There's an Italian attack coming in towards Strasbourg. That's nothing all that new. It's the German turn that really throws a spanner in the works. Firstly, we see 2 armies go through French territory, completely undefended by the French, into Belgium from the south, and Brussels is now under siege by a force that's much stronger than the civilian militia army that will be defending it. Plus, 2 more armies, or 3 armies by the looks of things, are trying to cross into Belgium from the east, or at least cross into the inner part of Belgium where we're defending the river crossing with just a few units. A couple of French units will join us for the fight, but overall, not the best balance bar. As for the plan, we've got a machine gun bunker and mortars defending the southern crossing while our infantry defend the north. With the machine gun bunker, I'm micromanaging the way it fires, because we've seen in the past it can shoot beyond its effective range if you just attack ground with it. So we use that to gun down enemies before they get to the crossing, and it's particularly effective, especially because the machine gun bunkers are really accurate in comparison to regular machine guns. It just shoots in a big straight line, cutting down lines of enemy soldiers. As for the AI, it doesn't really know what to do about this. Sometimes they shot at the bunker, which didn't do anything. Other times they run at us, which just makes our shots even more accurate and more deadly, and not many guys are going to get across the river under this hail of fire. We are pretty much set up for this battle then. We don't have to do anything. We can just micro to kill the enemy faster. I think we probably would have been fine if I just left our gunners to take the enemy down. The enemy started bringing in cavalry, which is even less effective than infantry, because even though it does have the chance to quickly cross the river, they're big targets, so just shooting generally at them kills men quickly, and the smaller unit size makes them easier to rout due to losses. There's another unit trying to make the crossing and dying. Really all I have here is like 40 minutes of me just gradually killing 3 enemy armies using a machine gun bunker. So not that much point showing all of it, but you can see the bodies piling up at the crossing point as thousands of enemies try to make the attack and just fail one after the other. Here's another wave coming in, and this is at about the point where the enemy is starting to run out of stuff to throw across the river, or at least run out of cavalry and infantry. Their artillery and the like are still hanging around at the back. They were fighting a couple of random French units, though I don't think they achieved anything. So yes, there was another case where they almost got up to our bunker with the cav, but then they turned back and they're just going to be annihilated as they retreat. Interestingly, a couple of machine gun bunker crews came over to the river. They've got some machine gun bunkers on their side, but they have abandoned them to join the attack, which is a bit of an issue for us, actually. Again, as we'll see in a second. You can see 2 units have made it across. It's the 2 machine gun crews. In a previous part, we saw how machine gun crews are actually immortal. You can't shoot them. So the bunker can't take them down. They can just run past our machine gun bunker and keep going. Bit of an issue for us, but if they don't really do anything, that's okay. I guess they can wander around on our side of the river. Meanwhile, freshly arrived infantry units are going to try and make the crossing, climbing over huge piles of bodies as they do so, in particular the horse bodies, which are completely clogging up the river. I'm using attack ground to shoot in front of the enemy's column. This formation they're in is super vulnerable to machine gun fire because the shots are just going right through multiple units and gunning down lines of enemies. If they had enough guys running with enough purpose and not constantly stopping, they might actually have got across with that mass of troops, but they spend half the time just standing around, and soon they're all routed. As they move back, they're going to get shot to pieces as well. That's just bad news for them. And it looks like we've got a bit of an issue here. An enemy machine gun crew has come over to knife fight with my machine gun crew, who've crawled out to engage in the battle. Our guys leveled up from all those kills earlier, so I think our guys are better, but still I'm bringing in my mortar crew to act as support for this battle. As I said, we know that machine gun crew can be killed in melee, so their invincibility won't save them or us here. There's just one issue, and it's a big issue, and that is that it seems to be the case that once a machine gun bunker has engaged in melee, they're locked in melee mode forever. You can't put them back on the gun like you can with other kinds of siege equipment. So, the bunker is now useless. I guess having a couple of bulletproof guys could be useful because we can go stroll around and draw aggro from enemy infantry or something, though it's not very useful for this battle in particular. But yes, we've discovered the big weakness of the machine gun bunker, and this is what I was getting at earlier when I said that cavalry might be able to take them down if they just charged in, got close enough for them to technically be in melee, and then the bunker could have been disabled right at the start of the fight. It overstates our losses here because I think included in our loss count is the loss of a few French units that were hanging around at the back. So in reality I think we lost something like 100 men. The machine gun bunkers got over 4,000 kills themselves, with a couple of hundred coming from the mortars as well. We need to take decisive action right now, and my plan was to have a multi-stage breakout. Basically we'll put the army back together here at Strasbourg and take out the Italian force currently besieging us. This army didn't look very strong, so I thought let's just auto-resolve them to death with a quick save, because never trust Napoleon auto-resolve. It was okay though, so we rout them, and then we can put everyone together in the city for a quick turn of replenishment before we move out. The plan will simply be to march everything we have back towards Brussels, try to save it, and then try to hold it. Now there's another attempt to make this river crossing by a whole load more German stuff that's come over from the Cleves area and survivors of the previous battle. There are loads of machine gun bunkers who will be deleted for participating in this battle and won't even be on the field, so that's good news. And the couple of French units that fought in the last battle that I didn't really pay any attention to were back, or the survivors of them were back. And they performed quite well this time, mainly because the Germans were just being weird. They sent their general to try and take on the French, and the general was killed, so that's a great start to the battle. The French units then moved on towards the enemy's starting position, where they came across the enemy's mortar teams. They quickly started cutting them down, and this poor mortar, seeing its unit's fate, is getting out of there. Run, you are free now, my child. Hopefully that mortar will live a long and happy life in the countryside. And of course, while we don't have machine guns this time, we do have 2 lines of rifle troops, and that's more than enough to cut the enemy down as they advance towards us. One of our units is even the modernized rifle guys, who aren't the Napoleonic looking units, so that's probably helping out as well. So many units charge across, get killed, go back, think about it again and charge across again as they come back from routing. You know the drill at this point. And many enemies are killed in this fashion. That is all looking good. One of the enemy's reinforcement armies is behind us on the map, so as we kill enemies, some enemies start to appear on our side of the river just behind us here. At first it's just going to be Cav, because they're always the first guys to come on as reinforcements. And that's okay, because all we need to do is turn our rifles and fire at them. The Cav just aren't going to be enough to break through or do any damage on their own, at least. They're all attacking one unit at a time, of course, making it extra easy. Fortunately, we ran out of ammo just as the enemy routed, and that was the last unit to make the crossing, so we had the exact amount of ammo we needed in the end. But yes, I certainly could have been more careful about it. But something strange happened. My men started just dying all over the place, and I was like, what is going on here? Some more classic glitches. As it turns out, the enemy have an invisible machine gun unit somewhere towards the back here. You can see them firing, looks like they took out the French as well. So that's the problem, they're just firing at superhuman range while invisible, pretty cheeky. We're going to run back and just hide in the woods because the battle was almost over on time anyway. Really though, we need to focus on our counterattack. The army is ready to march. I'm going to leave behind a bunker and 1 unit to defend Strasbourg, because with luck and exploits, that might actually be enough to hold the city against even large armies. Everything else will have to march right for Brussels, and that means we have to go right through Metz, because the zone of control on the army there is covering the river crossing we need to use to get to Brussels before it surrenders. We could march through France, but it would be too slow. Because there are all these German armies also near that zone of control, when we initiate this battle, loads of stuff gets drawn in and we've got a bit of a challenging situation. Part of the line was garrisoned in a wall. I thought this was a really good idea because when your troops are garrisoned in a wall, they bother to duck down, they use the cover, so they take dramatically reduced casualties from ranged fire. However, it also has certain downsides that I didn't realise at this time. The battle is just going to be me sitting behind cover and trying to shoot at the enemy. We're going to be vastly outnumbered with 3 armies to get through, so we don't want to move out of cover, we want to use all the advantages we can. Here we saw some cav actually frontally charge my line and make it, routing at the last second, and then in comes some infantry doing the same thing successfully, and we're starting to see the downsides to garrisoning in walls. I think only the front rank is able to fight if you're in a wall, whereas with a trench, all of your ranks will fire at once. So your offensive power is dramatically reduced while your defences are increased, and that means you're vulnerable to being melee charged, and because the AI is insane and likes to melee charge the centre of your line, it's actually paying off for them. They made it, and looks like they might actually defeat us. In this case we can react to it though, we've got so many troops who are free, we can just form a little cone in the centre of our line and then shoot those units down from a distance, and that works out pretty well. What I'm focusing on while actually playing the battle is this cavalry battle on the right flank, a World War I style cavalry battle. It's 2 groups of guys sitting on horses shooting at each other, and our guys shot better, so we won that fight. Overall, I'm trying to get these 2 units of infantry to go finish off the enemy's artillery. I was a bit confused at this point in the battle because we've killed maybe 1.5 armies worth of stuff, but I was expecting about 2.5, 3, and I just couldn't see where the rest of them were. And actually it's explained by this here. I've seen this glitch before in Empire Total War. Here it is for the first time in Napoleon. Units can get stuck while trying to come onto the field. And because the AI can only bring in 1 unit at a time, if 1 unit gets stuck on the edge of the map, the rest of the units can't enter the battlefield. So we're actually not going to be facing all of the enemy's armies. That sounds good, you might think, but actually this glitch becomes the definitive moment of this campaign. It's going to affect everything we do from now on, and it's going to cause us to experience many more glitches, both in this battle and in all of the random battles that will occur because of the eventual result of this fight. And long story short, we did not unblock the enemy's reinforcements, and we lost because of the time limit, a close defeat. Many more losses than I expected. The enemy took some pretty hefty losses in their army, but because we didn't break through, it doesn't really matter. We only have a couple of turns to get to Brussels before it's surrendered automatically, and with that, it's not going to be possible, and I'm not even completely sure it would have been possible if we won. I thought I might also mention right now that getting worse and worse in this campaign is a glitch you might have seen if you've played Empire Total War. In that game, the Ottomans could sometimes have extremely long turns, and Germany has that problem now. It's caused by the AI going a bit crazy and splitting its armies up into loads of 1-unit stacks. They have to pathfind around each other, which exponentially increases the amount of time it takes for the AI to make pathfinding calculations. And basically, you end up having to sit here for 5 minutes, while the Germans are just moving random units between cities in their territory and not doing anything all the time. Once I'd reorganised the force and got rid of my field guns, since I didn't want them anyway, we quickly auto-resolved the tiny scraps of an Italian army that was besieging Strasbourg, and we're in, but the financial situation is still pretty bad. And here we are sometime later, when Brussels is finally taken. A huge pile of German armies covers our territory. This is not the sort of thing we Belgians like to see. Not much we can do about that, obviously, and only the French can save us, but they don't want to, so that's just going to be the end of that. The Germans now have our land. I sent my reconnaissance plane to go and look at Germany. My first desire was to see how much money they were making on their towns, and the answer is absolutely loads, and that explains how they have so much stuff. But we also revealed the extent of the glitch that I was mentioning earlier. They've got all these little units, they're just moving between different towns and garrisoning them all over the place, and that is ruining the game. Now, as for our plan, there was one thing I could do. That was to go east towards Stuttgart, because we can actually attack that in one turn, so it is safe to do it. Plus, Stuttgart, while it's a smaller settlement than Strasbourg with fewer facilities, does make more money, so it could be a bit of an upgrade, especially because it takes us away from the German armies which were gradually surrounding us at Strasbourg. We ought to resolve our way through a machine gun bunker on the road. Couldn't quite make it to Stuttgart, but I just need to drop the howitzers, and then because the howitzers are close enough, we're in their zone of control still, they'll be involved in the battle for Stuttgart anyway. The enemy have their own random artillery unit coming in as reinforcements. All we had to do was shoot the enemy a few times to win. This did prove to be harder than I thought, because the enemy kind of weirdly took their whole army around my left flank and I had to fold my force to attack them. That's a great idea, by the way. I'm pretty sure the AI did it by accident. We did lose some men, less than 10% of our force, and we'll get replenishment since we're moving right into a town. We'll occupy the place. They're not going to be too happy about us being here. But that's not necessarily because they hate us, it's actually because I have the taxes on maximum right now, so you get a huge debuff to public order. I'm going to turn it down. So Stuttgart is going to be a no-go. We can't stay there, we'll just get swarmed, and you can see what I'm looking for here. I'm looking at the south side of the map because I happen to know from my old Tinny of Truth series that the south side of the map is overpowered in Napoleon Total War. You can get infinite money from the trade nodes, and the towns are nice and spread out. It's easy to defend things in general. Plus, going that direction means we fight the Italians, who have the worst units of the powers, I think, anyway, and probably have the fewest units. We start off with this battle against loads of random single units to make our way forwards. Things don't go as I expected. I tried this experimental formation with a load of machine guns in the centre, but obviously I didn't inspect the ground clearly enough because our men are actually shooting into the back of a hill, and that means the already low accuracy of the machine guns is going to be exacerbated, and basically we didn't really kill the enemy as they advanced towards us, and now we're in trouble. Plus, there's an additional problem. Some of my machine guns were actually in front of my firing line. This is really the worst possible setup. The AI doing its usual brain fart, just melee charge the center strategy. Fine success because our center was in disarray, and now the enemy flamethrowers are in melee with my machine gun and mortar crews, both sides not being used very effectively. The only redeeming feature to this situation is that we have way more men than they do, so we can just hack our way back. I'm going to reorganize our lines so they're not shooting at each other quite so much. That little echelon formation was perfect for all of my own men to shoot each other. A really, really bad setup. It was only like this because I didn't know which direction the enemy would come from. The loss of that machine gun is particularly annoying because at this stage in the campaign, we are not going to be recruiting new units anytime soon. Strasbourg is somehow not under siege anymore. The Germans just gave up on the siege and walked off, so that helped out quite a bit, and while Stuttgart is under siege, this gave me the confidence to play things a little bit slower, because if we spend an extra turn on the way to Switzerland, we can sit on a bridge, allow our howitzers to catch up, and potentially make the Italians attack us in this position that really favours us, and indeed, that is the case. This small army comes over to attack, and that's going to draw the big army from Switzerland to come and attack us as well. And the good news is the enemy have taken some toll on their own side with their artillery by the looks of things. I think what must have happened there was men walked right in front of the gun barrels as they were firing and caused the explosion to go off in front of the guns. At least the enemy are still pushing men across the river. They came in waves for this battle, so after we killed that first wave of conscripts, they did hold their troops back as if they were thinking whether they should actually do it again, but eventually they did. They came across and got shot as intended. It wasn't really that bad. We lost something like 400 men and the enemy lost over 3,000. but it wasn't the complete one-sided slaughter that you might get from a river crossing just because the enemy's artillery was doing some damage there. At least we've achieved our strategic objective. The garrison at Switzerland has been weakened, so now we have a pretty good chance of breaking in even with our own weakened force. We can also bring up our artillery since we did wait that extra turn, so that's all good. Plus, I realised that we can actually get the enemy to surrender here. It says at the bottom they're willing to surrender, so I thought, well, we'll do that since we'd rather not take any more losses right now. This will cause the remaining enemy troops to still be alive, but they do walk off and just start taking attrition in the mountains, so it's not all that bad. I waited for 3 turns to try and replenish my army, with the plan of actually moving on to the south, but that plan's been put on hold by the fact that the Italians eventually sent another army up to besiege us. But things are harder than they look. Apparently Hindenburg himself is somewhere around here with a gigantic army of mostly cavalry, so that's adding on to the fact we're going to have to fight a machine gun bunker, a ton of artillery and snipers from the Italians. The campaign is very much hanging in the balance right now. We need this battle to go really well to have any hope of doing anything after this. Generously, old Hindenburg just sends the cavalry from his army to attack us right as the battle starts. That's going to allow us to chip away at a large amount of the enemy's quote-unquote strength before things get going. Then the Italian infantry come over to make their attack. They've got lots of non-particularly good infantry, so this is not too much of a worry. And their formation's a bit messed up as well. They've got units behind each other, which means they're probably just shooting into the backs of their own men. They have very ungenerously not attacked my line completely head on. They're slightly at an angle, meaning my left flank is under pressure, and of course we don't want to move at all because we've got our trenches here. It ended up resolving though because the enemy's right flank just walked up to my left flank. It seemed they were going for an extremely slow melee attack, and because they walked in slow motion half the time, we were able to take them all out before they got there. Now it's time for the rest of the German army to show up, all of the infantry. And this is where the enemy's main strength lies, because as I've mentioned before, German infantry is better than ours, and in fact it outranges us. We start taking so many casualties not only to that, but other attacks down the line, such as on our left flank, that I decide to fall back from the trenches. In the centre it was okay, because the AI messed up and walked too close, so we managed to kill them. But we've actually taken huge numbers of losses down the line, even with our trenches, just because our men can't really fire back at the enemy. They're either out of range or just on the edge of it, so it's just not happening. Therefore, by falling back, waiting around for 10 seconds, and then going back to the trenches, the AI is drawn forwards a little bit, and now the units are going to be in range, so we'll have an easier time of fighting them. Numbers will be on our side, even if our guys aren't as accurate as the enemy or what have you. We do still have plenty of numbers on our side, so even with those losses taken, we can finish off the last few enemy units. But it certainly hasn't been a clean affair. We did take more losses than I had hoped, and several of our units are on the verge of destruction. And it's not exactly going to get better, because now we have to walk across the whole map towards the enemy's artillery to try and take them out. At the same time, I had a couple of units going up the left side of the map, and they stumbled across some snipers out there. The enemy, as we'll see, actually have quite a few hidden sniper units around the map. The problem with going near them though is that the enemy's machine gun bunker is just on the other side of those trees. I need then to try and keep the camera close to it, because the only way to know if it's firing at us is to hear it firing. It wasn't firing at us up until about right now. When it starts, our cav got too close unfortunately, and they are annihilated immediately before they could cheekily take out those snipers. There are actually 3 sniper units standing on top of each other there. Now our goal is to try and take out those field guns and the other MISC units without getting absolutely annihilated by the enemy's machine gun bunker, so we have to carefully walk towards it and try to stay out of its guesstimated range. It works eventually, but you can see in the bottom right we're actually running out of time. The battle's about to end, so we have to end things right now. There's no time to try and blow up the enemy's bunker. We have to just run at it. So we're going to test this theory I had, that a bunker can be defeated with a human wave attack, because you just have to get close enough for it to be in melee and then it will stop shooting you. The problem is, it does shoot you while you're running at it of course, and we lose multiple units to this. I was trying to micro there to get the enemy to shoot into the back of their trenches to waste bullets, but it did not quite work out since we routed too quickly. Our men are exhausted and their units are already damaged, so really this is a bad setup to try human wave attack on a bunker. But it does work just because we had enough men to do it. We take extreme casualties running up to it, but once we're close, it will just stop firing, and then there's some sort of weird circular melee going on that technically results in the enemy being defeated in some way, and that's going to bring an end to the battle. A heroic victory, although really, this was not the most heroic of victories. We lost something like 2/3 of our army in that battle. So while the siege will be broken, and we've taken out that random German army, mostly anyway, we're also in trouble right now. We happen to have lost Stuttgart and Strasbourg to them surrendering, so now we're in really big trouble. With the Germans now on our doorstep once again, with a full stack moving up, it's basically time for an all or nothing move. We have to take Milan right now. We probably could hold Switzerland against at least one army, but that wouldn't achieve anything because we're still bankrupt. We would just be stuck there forever. So to have any hope, we do need to take a bigger city like Milan. By the start of the next turn, there are 3 German armies in Switzerland. The town isn't under siege for some reason. The enemy just walked right up to it. Maybe they ran out of movement points or something, I don't know. But it just means we just have to keep going. The Italians, very generously, moved a lot of the stuff that was defending Milan just off somewhere else. Some guys over to the west there by the looks of things. So actually we do have the perfect chance to try and take it right now. However, it's never that easy. We get glitched out once again. Our army, for reasons unknown, is not allowed to initiate an attack. I can't really tell why, but yes, the UI for a siege doesn't even appear. I guess this sort of worked out because it made the enemy sally. The problem is, while we do have some troops available, they're all in the reinforcement army, so we're not going to be able to deploy our trenches, and our mortars, machine guns and artillery aren't involved at all for some reason, even though they don't appear to be that far away. You can see on the minimap the enemy's got this weird formation. They've put their artillery in front of this forest and their infantry behind it, meaning with my 1 rifle cav unit I can charge right away and go after the artillery. There was 1 infantry unit guarding it, but it's only a militia unit. It's being hit by its own field guns, so that's going to help us out. And they have no morale, so they just rout instantly, and then our rifle cav can take out both of the artillery crews. An excellent start. That's going to make life a lot easier for us. We don't have trenches for this battle because everything's in a reinforcement army, but there was a set of walls that was in a perfect position for corner camping, so I set up there instead. Many units decided to go for a melee attack, and this also is actually pretty good when facing garrisoned troops because their low fire rate means we just don't really shoot them as they come in, and upon closer inspection, our men just aren't really doing anything. They do appear to be frozen in time, neither firing nor fighting. I don't know what's going on with them. More bad news is that 1 enemy unit's outflanking us here. My 1 reserve unit was the survivors from my rifle cav, so I decided to have them attack the guys who are outflanking us, the citizenry. And I'm going to go for a melee attack because citizenry have like 2 or 3 morale, like the lowest stat in the game, so if anything happens to them, their morale will just break. So we charge them with a few horsemen, and that will be enough to finish them off. Meanwhile, down the line our men are sometimes firing at the enemy. I'm not sure, but anecdotally it seems it also reduces your reload rate. So while it's only your first rank firing, which dramatically reduces your overall fire rate, the first rank also fires slower than they normally do. At least that's how it appears to me. Now as for how the battle ended, it just kind of did. Watch the balance bar just there. It just suddenly switched to we win. Nothing in particular happened, just all the units in front of us decided to chain rout, and that was the end of that. And we're just going straight into another battle against the same army, only this time we're attacking, and this time, notably, the UI actually appeared, allowing us to make this attack, so that's nice of the game. As we go through the battle, it becomes clear that the enemy hasn't even deployed their troops. It's just left them in the default setup when the game loads, and hasn't done anything to them. So the top level AI is switched off for some reason. They can't make any decisions. That means everything the AI does will be down to the secondary AI, the unit AI, which overrides the main AI. So what that means is we can make the enemy come and attack us, but only one unit at a time. We have to go and aggro individual units so their AI overrides the orders to do nothing and they'll come and attack us. But we can't aggro the whole army like we usually can by just shooting artillery at them and making the top level AI turn off its defensive mode. If that makes any sense, and if that's even the correct interpretation. We just need to go aggro the enemy right away. So we rush the cav out to hang around near the enemy, which activates the individual unit's scripted AI. They say, right, we're attacking, and they'll come and attack on their own and get quite easily killed. And we might as well skip forward now, because basically I'm just doing this to unit after unit, including the enemy general. Down he goes after he makes his personal attack on our lines, and it doesn't go very well. We lost about 100 men, and when you only have 250 men, that's a big deal. So Belgium's army is now just one company's worth of troops. We are on the very edge of complete destruction, yet we have now taken Milan. So this is our chance to bounce back, hopefully anyway. The place is extremely rich compared to the places we had before. It's much richer than Brussels, for example. So now we're making a load of money. We can afford to have more units. I need to lower taxes slightly to stop rebellion, but I can still have them pretty damn high, and the people are okay with it, so that's good news. And this place gives you extreme replenishment. If we can have a couple of unmolested turns, we'll just bounce back to full strength right away. Nothing happened, and I've successfully recruited a couple of machine gun bunkers. And look at this, we've got like a full stack of troops. The Belgian army is maybe bigger than it's ever been sitting here in Milan. This is a glorious new age. We're really bouncing back fast here. Anyway, so I engage in this little battle to kill the Italians near Milan. Manage to get a few hits, and then the general just goes wild and decides to charge right forwards, charging into the line of bullets coming out of my machine gun bunker very generously, so I don't even need to adjust my line of fire. And with that, the enemy general is taken out right at the start of the battle. That is a good start. The good news is, one more bunker has been taken out. Of course, we still have to deal with the bulletproof crew, but with our mortars, we're able to kill the crew before they become a nuisance, really. The crew are still vulnerable to explosions, luckily enough. Here's some footage to represent that there was a minor infantry battle. This was mainly an issue because my machine gun bunker in the middle of the line died, my other one's too far away to help. So we did have to do some normal fighting, but we have a huge advantage, so really nothing to say about that. We only got a close victory, which I thought was a bit unfair, considering that we didn't really lose that much stuff, and what we did lose were mostly the conscripts who came in as reinforcements and took part briefly in the infantry battle. Anyway, that battle was kind of pointless. It was just an experiment. We've not really gained anything by killing those couple of units, but I guess it's better than not killing them. The issue we have now is that the Germans, after like 5 or 6 turns of just standing around, suddenly decide they are going to attack Milan and come over with like 4 armies, although actually they have second thoughts right away, and that just quickly scaled back down to just the 1 army near Milan. So we can gamble by sending our main army to just go on and try to secure the territory to our west. If we can clear out those Italian armies and take that town, our front line will be much neater, we'll be less threatened from all sides as we are right now. So I'm eager to achieve that. Therefore the main force will focus on this goal and just leave Milan under siege. Hopefully we can get away with this. Because we're losing money, I don't want the siege to continue. Plus, because the German armies are out of reinforcement range of the besieging guy right now, this is the best time to attack, so we're just going to go for it right away. In this battle, the fate of our key unit, the machine gun bunker, depends on how the enemy use their artillery. And as the fight begins, things are looking extremely good for us. The enemy have most of their artillery positioned just behind a small hill, the perfect place for it to never actually get any of its shots to our side of the map. Plus, as you can see here, they are busily shooting their own men as they walk past, so that's an even better start. This goes okay for a while, but the enemy do outflank us on our right, and this starts causing problems. I had my machine gun crew, my regular machine gun crew here, and they took losses and had to retreat. I think my general was killed at about this point, our captain I should say. The issue with using the machine gun bunker for exploits is it achieves victory quite slowly. Since it's so accurate it kills men in lines. If the enemy aren't lined up in a column, you don't kill men that quickly over time, but at least you're pretty much guaranteed to keep killing them unless they get to melee distance. I suppose the good news about this battle
is that the enemy didn't really prioritise melee this time. They just stood there shooting us, and even with our conscripts fighting with the enemy's regular infantry, we found victory because we're using trenches and the enemy infantry were probably just walking around and not shooting half the time. We had a lucky break at the end because the enemy had some machine guns in the back corner of the map, but they were inactive, their AI was broken, so I could just walk right at them from the front and kill them without being shot. That was pretty good. We're going to send most of our army to attack all these Italian forces around Torino. This is a pretty good battle for us actually, because we're attacking a river crossing, and because the AI is so aggressive, that will mean we're effectively defending a river crossing, and the AI has a lot of the pre-bunker crew update bunkers that can't participate in the battle because they're reinforcements, and will be deleted after the battle is over no matter the result. So actually a massive portion of the enemy's strength has already been defeated just because I showed up to this battle. A great start. They're mostly attacking our southern crossing point. A few men decided to take the northern crossing point on their own. That didn't go very well because that point is just as defended as the southern one. Got some men here in the middle trying to be mortar bait, trying to aggro the enemy's mortar fire away from the bunkers. Can't remember if it worked, but ultimately it doesn't matter because we weren't under fire for that long. The last of the enemy's infantry are making their attack here, and a few of them did manage to get their feet wet. They finally got to the crossing, but overall it's just a devastating setup for the enemy. A lot of them have the flank of their unit facing us, meaning our machine gun bullet lines are going through many ranks of enemies, and the bunker is just devastatingly effective overall in this case. The enemy force was totally wiped out, and it's even better than it looks because all of the bunkers will have been deleted, as I said, so now the enemy has far fewer bunkers than they had before. Nothing too special here, so we will just go straight into the next battle, and this one proved to be another case where things don't go as expected, because once again we see a deactivated enemy AI. Perhaps it is something to do with attacking settlements specifically, because that was the case when we last saw this happen. The AI is just off, and as I've said before, I think it's not even deploying its troops. They're in the default position. That's why they're all kind of checkerboarded all over the place, and as we get closer, they're all facing the wrong direction. They haven't deployed their army at all. We did though have another surprise. After a while, the enemy's reinforcements showed up. I'd forgotten about these guys. They were supposed to get reinforcements, but they just weren't around for a while. And when they finally showed up, I guess this activated something because the AI then switched on. Maybe it was waiting for the reinforcements for some reason, I don't know. Probably some sort of fail-safe was activated. And now you can see the Italian units that were deployed initially have started walking towards us, and I'm now going to not advance quite so far since I saw they're finally going to attack us. We could run all the way back to our initial position and try to use our trenches, but I'd moved up my artillery and machine guns and they can't go back fast enough, so we are going to have just a regular line battle style engagement. And as the enemy were routing towards the north side of the map, every time they came back they'd have to face the machine guns on my flank again. You can see me here just monitoring whether the machine guns are actually killing enemies when they're firing directly at them at well below their maximum range, and the answer is not really, but they occasionally get hits and that seems to be enough. Reinforcement armies, by default, just try and walk to stand in the center of the map if they don't receive any orders, and I think that's what happened. Because the top level AI is still switched off, it can't give orders to the reinforcement army and it's just gone to stand in the middle, and that's why it looks like it's charging us with its field guns limbered up like that. It's just trying to set them up somewhere just in front of us, and as a result, all of their men got killed. We lost like 150 men to the enemy getting the odd pot shot at us as we were absolutely wiping them out, and then like another 100 men to friendly fire because of the thing where the guys at the back of your units will shoot slightly sideways and hit the guys at the front of the adjacent units in your line. So yeah, just one of those nice fundamental flaws in the game, killing our men. As for my plan, well, it's what I'm looking at right here. I'm looking down the Italian peninsula and just thinking, why don't we have all of that? Because if we keep defending in the north around Milan, we can relatively safely have the rest and have it not be under threat of attack, and then we'd actually be quite strong. But as you can see, we do have something else we have to deal with in the meantime. The Germans are going for Milan once again. This is a bit of a challenging one because the enemy have machine gun bunkers, and we only have our 1 unit of howitzers as reinforcements, so we have to use them very carefully to not end up charging the machine gun bunkers head on. Now we just need to micro our machine gun bunkers to take the enemy down. We've got a regular machine gun crew on top of a nice hill as well, that's probably doing a load of damage. Need to of course make sure the enemy don't get close enough to the machine gun bunkers to disable them, that's always the priority. And on our right there's a little bit of a regular line battle going on as our conscripts fight with enemies in that forest. Having our machine guns up on the hill was probably doing loads of damage here. You can't really tell because you can't tell where their bullets are going. But enemy bodies are covering the field. They are though running at us, so there's definitely the risk of them getting into melee range. I have put some of my citizens at the bottom of the hill, you can just about see in the background there, to aggro the enemy and try to keep fire and melee attacks away from our machine gun crews. And their main force is on the verge of being destroyed. You can see my sacrificial unit there sitting in front of the machine guns. They're surprisingly alive just because the AI is not in a very shooty mood. It's just walking around in front of the machine guns today, so that's helping us out a lot. Also, their reinforcement army now shows up because everything else is routed off the field, but taking them down proved to be really easy because all they're trying to do is move back towards where the enemy deployed. And as they were just marching across the face of my conscripts here, they weren't interested in whether they were being shot at, so they did just keep walking and allow me to gradually kill all of them from the flanks with all of these terribly inaccurate conscript units. The army from Torino will just start marching towards Rome. It's going to take a long time to get there, decent number of turns because we're moving so slowly with the bunkers and our artillery in tow, but looks like we've got a pretty clear run of it. There's nothing in front of us, so we'll just start that project. Back in Milan, the Germans just stood around for a while not attacking, and that allowed me to build even more machine gun bunkers. So now I've got 4 of them. I'm thinking this army must be pretty powerful. We can probably just do this. Let's step out and just engage the Germans before they besiege us. Ludendorff dies, bravely leading his men in a charge across the river. And some of the men do get into rifle range of our bunkers. That's something. Well, it's not, because they're just going to shoot the bunkers. They needed to keep going to have any chance of winning, but they don't. And just look at the river, it's being absolutely peppered with machine gun bullets all over the place. These units are not going to last very long, and the same can be said for all of the enemy's initial army. After this, I was able to go and stand on the bridge without the Germans challenging me to an interception battle. So there we go, we've got our defensive plug in place now. One of the bunkers and some troops were sent over to the west because one of the German armies has actually walked around in Milan's territory enough to end up threatening Torino and ended up coming over to the west. As for Austria-Hungary, oh, Austria-Hungary. Yes, they've decided to do the 1 unit army thing all over the damn place, which might explain why they haven't attacked us in a while. The German army that we were tracking has disappeared mysteriously. I actually had an idea of where it might be, because obviously it's gone into hiding somewhere, and most of the hiding places are around Torino, and actually it was more there than I expected. It was standing on the road outside the town and had still managed to become hidden. The enemy's infantry could just charge my bunker while I'm away, and unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, they did. The enemy was having a melee day. It's melee Mondays. So they didn't do the thing where they usually just shoot the bunker and stand around doing nothing. They just run at it, and that is unfortunately the weakness of the bunker. So a melee technically starts, doesn't look like it, but this is a melee. The bunker itself is trying to get out of there. It's kind of like the enemy are pushing it away, and my crew are being revealed like woodlice underneath to fight with their knives. So that's not very good. They actually did the ambush in a somewhat effective manner, and they only lost 1,000 men to kill our 200. It does mean this enemy army will now be a threat. We can't stop them from taking Torino. And we don't really want to peel too much from the army over here, because they are standing off against quite a lot of stuff, and if the AI felt like it, they could put a lot of pressure on us. We're actually going to leave that as an open question for now, because our men are arriving near Rome, so let's just deal with this. Our attack actually had really good circumstances, because while the enemy had clustered around Rome with a load of stuff, we can make this particularly good offensive, one that causes lots of machine gun bunkers to not be involved because they can't reinforce and some of them will be deleted. And we're attacking a small army that's near a river, turning this into a river crossing battle, our forte when we have our machine gun bunkers of course. we've got a machine gun bunker pointed right down the bridge, and because the enemy are arranged in big, long lines, our bunker's just going to destroy their entire army with no effort whatsoever. Our mortars are also somewhat contributing. The mortars, by the way, can destroy the bridge. It just takes so many attacks that we've never actually seen it happen. One of their generals wandering around at the back gets himself killed because I think I was targeting my machine guns onto him specifically to try and pick up that cheeky kill. Meanwhile, his men are not having a very good time. They're just being mowed down unit by unit. There is zero probability of them doing anything here, but the AI will try. It doesn't mean we've taken Rome, but it means the forces around Rome are scattered, and in particular, the stack that was defending Rome has been really cut down to size. That means that when we attack Rome, which will be right now by the way, a lot of the units will just be the militia units which have very little presence on the balance bar, and we actually get a situation where we could auto-resolve the attack and just have Rome right now. But say it with me, children, never trust a Napoleon auto-resolve, so always save first. Anyway, we get a reasonable result, and we take the city. Just like that, we have yoinked it. The capital of Italy, one of our big enemies and one of the big enemy powers, has been taken by plucky old Belgium. The amount of German armies that are stacked up ready to attack us has only been increasing over time, but they haven't been attacking us. And by the way, the video hasn't frozen. I thought I'd show you here a real-time example of how long it takes to select an army in the game at the moment. It's because with like the Austro-Hungarian thing, they've set up so many individual armies that when you click on an army, the game has to go through the loaded database of armies that exist to find the one you clicked on. And when there are so many armies, the database engine isn't efficient enough to find things because it was never meant to deal with this many armies, and it just takes forever to go and look up the details. So that's pretty annoying. One way to mitigate this actually is to just not be able to see the enemy. I think it looks through the armies that are within your line of sight first, so it's much faster if you can only see a few armies. To do that, I need to get my recon plane well away from the Austro-Hungarian domain of madness. This in itself is a lag-filled exercise because every time you move something, it recalculates and repathfinds on every frame. And with all this stuff standing around, there are many obstacles it has to pathfind around, like seeing whether you could, in theory, move to the north and go through their armies as part of your route. So, that's a labour unto itself, but finally it is achieved, and let's get back to the game. I've built some more units at Milan. I say built, trained some more units at Milan, including a unit of our Congo infantry, who are exactly the same as rifle infantry basically, but their unit card looks better, so that's something. And they move out to go and try to save Torino, while a few units are left behind. By the way, the enemy could have taken Torino easily while they had it under siege for the last couple of turns. The AI is really unaggressive when it comes to starting battles in settlements, much to its detriment because our army inside was one rifle unit and a load of citizen trash. In this battle, for some reason, I was allowed to deploy right next to the enemy. You can see on the minimap how far up the map we've deployed our front line. So things got started very quickly. In fact, our machine gun bunker was already in range of the enemy as the battle started. Plus, with our attack from behind happening at the same time, the enemy were just in huge trouble. We had no issues taking out their artillery, who weren't paying much attention to us, and that was the end of that. I was considering not attacking Naples until next turn so that they could finish building something for me, but I thought no, let's just take it now. We don't really need that building anyway. So yes, they've just got loads of the citizen units which don't get any presence on the balance bar, so our little army can just auto-resolve them to death for minimal losses, and bang, we've instantly taken Naples. The Italians are very clearly setting up to attack us, so that's what we're probably going to have to deal with next. They've got a decent force here with loads of artillery, they've got machine gun bunkers and plenty of decent enough infantry. It looks like they're going to the left, so they're going to go around the source of that river, so I don't need to bother defending that river crossing. We throw everything into the town. Going to be difficult though because they do have quite a lot of stuff right here, and they're going to be coming from different angles, but we'll do our best anyway. So here's the battle. A very bad balance bar, and they do have machine gun bunkers, which we can only defeat either with our mortar or with a mass charge from our citizenry. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. An enemy general attacked our flank on his own. This is because the enemy's reinforcement army is coming on from the direction of those buildings you can see on the minimap. So they're coming on behind us, but they only had the one unit to start with, so their general just died.
The general of the initial army is also wandering about over here. I'm microing the machine gun bunker to take him out right now, and while everyone else in his unit dies, he seems to be luckier and survives for a while, but he's not that lucky. Eventually he goes down too. Now I just need to keep the enemy's infantry at bay because they are looking a bit chargy, they might just run at us. Meanwhile, I'm also attacking the enemy's flank with mostly my own trash, just want to go and take out all of those artillery and try not to get killed by the enemy's bunker. But that's going to be easier said than done because so many of my units are the trash militia who probably won't do anything. I was really relying on this one unit of rifles, having issues with them as well because the wall in front of them is blocking their line of sight and they're refusing to fire. Just the usual stuff, too much pathfinding madness going on near the walls and the edge of the map. But the enemy's bunker is now shooting at them, so now I thought, can I use this trench to just block all of the enemy attacks? Because once the bunker is stuck trying to shoot at one unit, the other guys could go and melee it successfully. However, that unit routed, and that really was the end of my flank attack because the citizens can't do anything else and they routed themselves shortly after this. My men on the front line just need to be told to get back in formation. Aside from that, everything's fine. We've even got some artillery brought up from the enemy's reinforcements who have set up a bit too close, and I can actually snipe them down using my bunker. So that's very handy, going to ensure the longevity of the bunker. Over here, something strange is going on. Some enemy men are walking towards us, but not much is happening in terms of fighting. It's because these conscripts have glitched out and we're not allowed to target them, and they're just walking their way across the field. They are non-combatants, we have decided. We'll look into that a bit more in a second. On the front lines, the enemy's infantry are still being turned back by the unit and generally everything's fine. One advantage we have here is that much of the enemy's second army coming on are conscripts and are easy to rout, so they don't get very close. You kill a few of them and they run away, and then we kill even more as they run. The battle is still going, of course, because the enemy still have a unit on the field. It's that unit of mysterious conscripts which has done the dead reinforcements thing. They've gone to stand in the middle of the map and now they are there. And I was looking around the edge thinking, is this the problem I think it is? And yes, it is. Part of their unit stuck outside. So this is the exact same thing we saw with machine guns previously. The unit isn't technically in the battle, so it's blocking part of the enemy's reinforcement army. We can't end the battle and we can't even target those guys, so we can't kill the exposed conscripts while they're deactivated. Therefore, I just quit the battle. It's a close defeat, we have to give them the win. But unlike the previous times we've done this time the game does what I feared the previous times. It auto-resolves some kind of result and just decides that, you know what, we lost 80% of our men. Our army is absolutely decimated due to me just quitting the battle, I guess. If I'd waited the extra half hour, maybe they'd still be alive. We've got some good news from Naples. Public order is stable with a decent number of my troops outside of the town, so our offensive can now continue. Got a bunch of guys ready to go and attack Sicily. Now we've got some bad news really. The German army has realised they can just walk past my river defences and attack Milan from the west. At least that's what appears to be happening, because their death ball starts gathering up to go along the route that will allow them to do that. I felt obligated then to commit a lot of the reinforcements bound for Torino to instead just stand on that bridge, because defending Milan is after all more important. Here's the next turn, and our men have now arrived at Sicily, and it was even easier here than I expected. I thought I might have to fight a field battle and annihilate the civilians, but no, we can just auto-resolve them to death, and there we have it. So Italy is really in trouble. Belgium has pretty much everything. Italy is just Venice and Sardinia right now. I ended up moving all of the troops in Milan to go and defend the eastern crossing, because that's where most of the Germans are, and because even if the guys coming over the western bridge besiege the city, they probably won't bother attacking it based on what we've seen so far, and we will have time to go back and take them out either with the men on the eastern bridge, or even with the guys who are going to Torino. We'll go over here, clear everything up, and then go back to stop the Germans. So here's the battle we need to fight. We're basically facing the army that didn't come onto the field in our previous battle with the Italians. This is an offensive river crossing, a first for this series, because the enemy are hanging around on their side of the map. They're just maneuvering their formation this way and that and setting up to receive our advance, although that's not universally true. A few units, I guess, were close enough to us or something that they decided to come and attack. And included among that is the enemy general, who came over to charge across the bridge on his own. That didn't go very well. Both the crossing points are covered by machine gun bunkers, and because they're the core of our army, we can't really attack right now, which puts us at a disadvantage indeed. The other thing I'm doing is moving some troops down the edge of the map here along the bottom, because the enemy have lots of artillery at the back, so I thought I could sneak around behind them and at least take out the artillery to perhaps give the enemy the impression that they don't have a ranged advantage. This didn't go very well, because the conscripts I sent routed just as they got into position to cut down all of the crewmen. That's a shame, but take a look at the mini-map. I'm not really sure what caused it, but the enemy decided, you know what, we're going to send like 80-90% of our men to stand near the crossing. Perhaps they wanted to defend this area. They spent a lot of time walking up and down on their side of the bridge while we were hitting them with our mortars and sniping them with our machine gun crews. And eventually they thought, you know what, let's just go across. We managed to trigger them into attacking us, and across they come. So this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed to happen. Broadly speaking, in the last episode when I was like, this battle is actually going to require me to try, I think I was just forgetting how easy it actually turned out to be because the enemy just gave me the win. So yes, it's really a river crossing defense, despite almost being an offensive battle. So, we've now taken out a lot of the enemy's reinforcement army as well, which wasn't very many troops to begin with, which leaves us with just a few units that didn't, for whatever reason, join the aggro charge across the bridge. It's their artillery and another general plus their bunker. I guess the things that never got close enough to get triggered in some way. So, to take those guys out, we're going to have to advance with our limited number of infantry, but they don't have very much stuff, so this is perfectly plausible, as long as they don't hit us with the bunker, because that bunker could easily take all of our guys out. The terrain here was on our side though. We could advance at the bunker from behind, and we're on top of a hill, meaning it can't really see us, plus the trenches the enemy has left all over the place block its line of sight. So here we're getting really close to the bunker, and you can see the little black effects going on in the background as it's trying to shoot into its own trench and do nothing. We are safe to do this right here. I thought I'd be firing at this enemy artillery crew. I'm giving the order over and over, but my men, they're just not up for it today. They're going to walk in to melee. I think they eventually start firing at the crew once the crew is in amongst their own formation, which is a bit dangerous, but there you have it. I suppose it got the job done eventually. So that means Torino is now actually saved. The siege was broken, and the guys who got annihilated by auto-resolve last time can start coming back to life. And with all these new troops here, it's unlikely the really battered Italians will be able to make another attack. Near Milan, I'm going to increase our defences here, because we don't really need all that stuff on the bridge in the east. We can probably hold it with just one bunker and maybe one unit of artillery or something. So we'll move some guys back in case we need to do a siege sally exploit against that army that's probably going to besiege us soon. Some good news is that down in Rome, things have calmed over time, and now I can actually move out with a real army to start moving north and perhaps plug up our borders and try to make a more coherent defence that doesn't have 20 enemy stacks roaming around our territory. Now some really good news comes. In the Italian turn, they want peace. All they have to do is go fascist and they will be peace. They are channeling that World War II energy right here. The thing is, being fascist gives you a big public order debuff, which we don't want. So I instead renegotiated the treaty, and they were willing to tell us about telephones in exchange for peace. So that's good. Now we can call each other because we're such good friends. After negotiating with Britain for ages, I was able to get this deal to go through. I had to give them Torino and some random tech in exchange for Gibraltar, so Britain is winning on the deal here. But the strategic potential of Gibraltar is very great, as we'll see in a sec. Then this message appears. Apparently the campaign's going to end in 8 turns. Yes, it actually ends at the end of 1918, according to the start screen for the campaign. So things are about to cease, with the war actually having not really started in terms of the main body of the war. And here is Gibraltar, now under Belgian control. Looks like the British had a couple of stacks there who are going to have to awkwardly walk off, not sure what they can do. Now the point of me taking Gibraltar specifically is it has a port that's right by a whole load of trade nodes, and it controls a naval choke point. So here we can spam out the trade ships. They take a long time to build, and with only 8 turns left in the campaign, this isn't going to be really useful at all. But in principle, Belgium can now take over the world's shipping because the AI isn't doing it, and we can become extremely rich, getting like 40k a turn off trade by just taking all the nodes. Although in this campaign, as I said, it's not going to be all that useful. Anyway, a couple more turns pass without anything in particular happening, and now my ships down at Gibraltar are ready. So we can show, in principle, how this would have worked. We throw a trade ship onto each of the nodes, and because they're all just open, the AI wasn't paying any attention, we can have all of them. It's diminishing returns, so it's better to have your ships spread out across as many nodes as possible, but you can stack like 7 or 8 ships on top of a node before it stops giving you extra money. Something that actually happened was that Germany did take Torino from Britain, so now Britain and France have been forcibly involved in the war right at the very end. Good for them. I had this idea that what if I go and retake Torino, thinking I could cheekily give it to Britain again and try to get something else off them this time, like get Wales and just still give Britain Torino. That's not actually going to work, for reasons that will soon become clear once we get into this battle. It started off ordinarily enough. It's another case where we're attacking across a river, but the AI was willing to attack us, so the brunt of their force, the bulk of it, can be taken out without us having to do anything. But the battle itself will still give us some trouble, because as we advance through everything and get to their last units, it's one of these situations. They've got a machine gun crew that's half in, half out, and we cannot attack them. Here my flamethrowers go in to take a look, but really all they can do is dance. We just can't take on these enemies. But it means my plan to sneakily take Torino and give it to the British isn't going to happen. And with this I thought, well, it's early December 1918. We might as well just wait until the end of the year and see what happens. The Germans are marching all over the place. They've actually spread out down the Italian peninsula. They're no longer bunched up near Milan. The next turn starts, and I thought that's strange. The next turn starts. It wasn't meant to start. We're now in January 1919, and we're just still going. I don't know what that message was, saying the campaign's about to end, and the stuff on the campaign screen at the start where it says that it ends in December 1918. Maybe you have to do it before 1918 ends in order to technically win, but there's no loss condition. The war just continues. There was one other thing I wanted to try out with this campaign, a big meta exploit that I was thinking about to actually make some use of the fact that we control Gibraltar. The first stage to this plan is to lose all of our territory. We're going to do this the hard way. What I want to achieve is to make Gibraltar my capital, because the capital is where your trade is defined from, and keeping our trade away from the enemy gives us a lot of potential to become rich. So as we saw there, I gave as much of my territory as I could to Spain after some negotiations with other powers who didn't want any of it. And now I'll let the other stuff that I own here, which I couldn't give away because it was already under siege, become part of Germany. The plan was scuppered slightly because Spain declared war on me all of a sudden while I was waiting, and my allies actually abandoned me. The final insult to Belgium after everything they haven't done to help us. They actually cancelled their alliance with us when Spain tries to retake Gibraltar off us. Absolutely outrageous. Spain did send an army to attack us right away, and I tried to sally against them, but I only had one machine gun bunker as my actual military units and a couple of these citizens. So it wasn't really looking good, and we were unable to succeed. The eventual solution to all this was to go back to before they declared war on me and force an alliance through, so that'll change the diplomacy AI, and this time we are able to hang on until the very end, when finally the Germans take Milan and Naples. They didn't want to attack, so I had to wait for the sieges to run down, which took a long time. But there we go. Now Italy is jointly owned in stripes by Germany and Spain. I guess Italy have been the real losers in this war. They have just been completely occupied by their allies and neutral powers. Anyway, so now that that's that, our capital is in Gibraltar, and that means all of our trade routes go to the port right here, and that's going to be real easy to defend. It's not going to get blockaded, and we can potentially now make unlimited money. Right now we're not making anything off these trade routes, and I was a bit confused as to why. And the reason is that I didn't realise trade routes don't make money on their own, the external trade routes that is. They just increase the amount of money you get by trading with other powers. So I had to open up the diplomacy menu and make some actual trade deals, which had all been previously cancelled after my capital moved. And the plan that I was thinking is we sit here, we get tons of cash, then we can build a massive army, a massive fleet, and attack Belgium, and that was going to be the way that I wanted to end this campaign. The huge issue with that idea is that it takes 5 turns to make one ship and loads of money, so I would have to sit here for, I don't know, hours. That's not going to happen, so we're going to resort to an alternative version of my final strategy because there were a couple more things I wanted to see in the game and just squeeze them into this abridged campaign. The main thing was tanks. We actually are able to recruit tanks here in Gibraltar, so I used the hacks to activate 1-turn construction, so all the buildings and units appear in 1 turn instead of like 3 or 5 each. That means I only had to wait a couple of turns to put an army together. Then I'm using the hack that restores your movement points after each move to quickly run over and just do the rest of the game in a single turn. This didn't work because this hack has its limitations. If at any point something happens that reduces your movement points and then you give a movement order at the same time, it restores your movement points to 0 in a confusing twist. Basically, this doesn't always work, so it's not quite as easy as I thought it would be. Had to reload a save and then continue our march more carefully this time. My objective here is to hunt down the seas of single unit armies and just take them out with my new legion of tanks to get revenge for all the time I had to spend sitting around doing nothing in the process of making this series. Looking for these little single stack armies and just taking them out one by one. It's just a couple here, but there's a few of them around every town and they just walk backwards and forwards between the towns during the end turn sequence, and it causes the 5 to 10 minute delays that I have to sit through. Here were some more guys just standing around. Let's take all of those ones out as well. In this case though, I'm drawing in an army that's like a half stack. It's got some actual units in it, so the balance bar's not totally in our favour. Now this is a river crossing battle, so it depends whether my tanks can get across, how effective my strategy can be. The tanks crossing at the ford in the south managed to get across, but in the north, where they had to cross the narrow bridge, while it looked like they'd make it at first, they eventually gave up and just clipped into each other and went on strike. So not much is going to be happening with those units, unfortunately. At least the ones that did get across can now move up to engage the enemy army, and they are super effective. They're essentially machine gun bunkers. While it looks like they're covered in machine guns, they still just shoot with one gun out of their front. But the gun's a bit less accurate than the machine gun bunker one, so it kills a lot more enemies because the shots are spreading out. And once all of our things set up, we're going to effectively have 5 better than machine gun bunker machine gun bunkers, so the enemy army shouldn't be too much trouble. There is still the potential risk of melee, but the enemy don't make it in this case. They almost do actually. You can see my lines not very effective. They're blocking each other's lines of sight, so actually being attacked from the flank here is a risk, but I can't be bothered to form them up in any sort of supportive way. They're just in the default line. All we need to do then is rumble forwards and encounter all of the enemy units coming onto the field. In this view, you can see how the machine guns actually work. They don't shoot continuous streams of bullets, they're actually shooting now and again a shotgun blast like group of shots, and those shots all land on the ground at different times, which gives the impression that the machine gun is shooting a continuous stream of shots really quickly. So that's interesting. Because we have the thing where your troops always get restored, losses don't matter, but even if we didn't have the hacks on, I do think that tanks would be OP because they probably just wouldn't take losses in general and you could rampage across the map. I took my death ball down towards the Austro-Hungarian border, and look at what happens here. I attack a group of what looks like perhaps 3 enemy armies coming into this battle. There's actually like 6 there, and I thought fine, don't really care where they are. Auto resolved it, and it turns out they were standing right in front of me. The enemy are able to hide armies in the open by the looks of things. Perhaps if the one unit is a special type or something, their army can then hide without being in forests or something. But this opens up the question of, well, how many armies are there actually? I mean, we're seeing quite a few here, but there it was double the amount we expected due to the number of armies that were hidden. how many are there hidden all over the place? They're not ambushing me because the AI just declines to ambush when you walk past them. We could be walking past all manner of armies and they only get revealed if you start a battle close enough to them. So yes, perhaps the problem's worse than I thought, and it wouldn't even be possible to take out all the 1-unit armies and save the game because half of them are just invisible and they'll never come out to fight you. Anyway, I ploughed into this blob of small enemy armies to try and get something going. Since the enemy have artillery and mortars, there is potential risk here, and I was monitoring whether the explosions could take the tanks out in the same way they can sometimes take bunkers out. But really it wasn't the explosive weapons I needed to worry about, because check this out. While I wasn't paying attention, some enemy cav ran into my line of tanks and got them all into melee. Now we're in trouble. Tanks can't shoot while moving, by the way. They end up getting themselves killed because they run back towards our army and our regular bunker takes them out. But now look at this. We see some reserve crewmen coming over to the tank. I guess they were still in the deployment zone or something. So our invisible knife-wielding reserve comes over and they can reactivate the tank. So the tank isn't exactly like a bunker. It can shoot again after being in melee. So the enemy infantry who were just about arriving are suddenly in huge trouble. They've got their flank facing all of our newly created machine gun bunkers. Those units are going to be absolutely annihilated. We are in business. The problem we have is that the enemy had machine guns in their reinforcements, so we've got the classic problem. The machine guns have just stopped the battle by getting stuck on the edge of the map. However, we have a tank that happens to have been immobilized just next to where they are, thanks to some enemy cav. And when they're immobilized, their move orders turn into attack ground orders. So we actually have a rare opportunity. We can use this bunker, effectively, to shoot all of the machine gun crews. And we're at close enough range that we can actually reliably do it. We could take out the whole crew so that the unit is dead, technically. And the thought is that maybe this will clear them out of the reinforcement list, and the next thing will come along and the battle will continue. This could be the solution to the machine gun conundrum. Unfortunately, the game does not want me to know whether this worked or not, so there you have it. In conclusion, it be like that sometimes, that's all we can say. I've given up at this point. There's no revenge, there's no catharsis to be had by actually taking out of those small armies. It's much more boring than I thought it would be. So I hit one final end turn, just for no reason really, but some interesting things did actually happen. Firstly, Austria-Hungary wants peace. I have to pay for it, but I've been using money cheats, so money's not really a problem right now. So yes, we'll take peace with Austria-Hungary, thus somewhat ending part of our war. But check this out, Germany now also wants peace, and they're not even demanding money. They're like, man, we can't take these guys. So we do end the war with them. And unlike in the past, it doesn't force us back into war. I thought maybe because we're after the point where the campaign's meant to end, the script isn't working anymore. So we're actually continuously at peace with Austria-Hungary and Germany now. Our war is over, but I actually started the war again on a separate save because I wanted to see what naval battles look like in this campaign. And the answer is they're basically the same as regular Napoleon. There aren't new models or anything. But it does increase the firepower of the guns, presumably. That's how it's different. Because it took like 1 or 2 volleys to sink ships. The naval battles were really quick. So that's that. I just wanted to see if anything interesting would happen if we actually played a naval battle. Not really, but you know, it's still pretty cool. Those naval battles are quite good. Not really of any use to us as Belgium without cheats, anyway. The final thing I did in the campaign was to throw $500,000 money at Spain and a whole load of techs to buy Portugal off them. For some reason they wouldn't accept just $500,000, they wanted the techs specifically. This means, in our alternate hacked timeline, Belgium has a nice, more satisfying ending condition. Gibraltar and Portugal is a pretty good combo for setting up our global trade empire and getting infinite money. And as I said, we're actually out of the war. The war's continuing, but we're not in it in this save because we have peace with both Germany and Austria-Hungary, and we've already got peace with Italy even in the canon timeline. This then is going to be the end of this campaign because, as I've alluded to, it's just too annoying to keep playing. I think I could have continued on to achieve my objective of retaking Belgium, but it would have been so annoying that I can't be bothered. So while we would have lost the campaign even if it had ended at the proper time, I'm going to spin this as saying the December 1918 state of the world is where the war ended, and therefore Belgium won as the biggest individual gainer in the war. And a dishonourable mention to Britain for doing absolutely nothing, perhaps to Russia for doing nothing, not quite sure. The Ottoman Empire, didn't see any of them. And also especially dishonourable mention to France for ruining everything for everyone, especially us. I blame all of the things that went wrong on France in this campaign, and I don't think that's entirely unjustified either. So thank you for watching The Great War. What an experience. I don't recommend you actually play it. I will see you next time.